So welcome to the next episode of the AHP Preceptorship podcast. We have a very exciting guest with us today. So it would be really lovely if you could introduce yourself, your profession, obviously your current role, and tell us a little bit about when you qualified as well.
Oh, well, thank you, Hannah and Felicity. My name is Wendy Hollands and I am an AHP professional lead for workforce in MPFT. And I am a dietitian by profession. So I came into dietetics after doing a degree in sports and exercise science was my first degree. And I did that in Portsmouth. And I absolutely loved exercise physiology. And that was back in sort of the late 90s, early 2000. I sort of graduated in 2021 from that. And it was all kicking off around obesity and cardiovascular disease. And we did a lot on our course around physiology, disease prevention and nutrition. And I really, really loved that. And I was desperate to become an exercise physiologist. However, I recognised that there was no jobs in exercise physiology at the time, which was crushing. And I really needed some money. And to do exercise physiology, basically you had to volunteer. So that was a bit difficult. And then I met some lovely dietitians at a careers event. And I thought, wow, that just sounds excellent. Where do you sign up? And then I managed to get onto a postgrad course in Cardiff. And I did my postgrad at Cardiff and was really, really fortunate to get a job before I qualified. Mm-hmm. So, and then started my career as a dietitian. Of which I have thoroughly enjoyed and feel really, really privileged to be in the role I am in now.
Oh, it's always so lovely hearing like the stories, and it's always AHPs meet somebody that's inspiring.
Yeah.
That then they think, oh, actually, I'm going to go for it. We just had one with Ryan, and he was talking about somebody that he met who was a physio, and they really inspired him to go on the programme.
Yeah.
So obviously, the reason we are doing this podcast today is because we want to celebrate the Capo Award that we won this year for AHP Workforce Transformation. So obviously, we're going to rewind back to the start of our journey, which was in 2021 when our partnership began. And obviously within Oxley's, we had a really successful preceptorship model, and we thought this would be great to share and look at partnering with other organisations and, you know, really look at something that hadn't been done before in terms of preceptorship, because preceptorship was so new for AHPs back in 2021. And even within Oxley's, when we first started looking at it back in 2018, it was pretty much unheard of. Well, getting all the AHPs together, separate professions had little things going on like occupational therapy, but it really was a game changer when we brought all of the AHPs together. So yeah, MPFT were our first national partners. You really took the plunge with us because, as we said, it was this new concept that nobody had ever done before. So you really trusted in our vision, in our our preceptorship program. And you've gone on to purchase the full package. So you've got our preceptorship core program and also beyond. And obviously that includes pre-preceptorship now as well. So just talk us through the position MPFT were in before we did our partnership with preceptorship, and then just talk us through how we partnered.
Yeah. Okay. So back in 2021, I remember it very vividly. It was a really tricky time for everybody. And I was, fairly new into a role at the time and had the role around looking at preceptorship and also our workforce, like what are we doing, how are we supporting them. And we had a preceptorship, and we still have a preceptorship program in MPFT, which is really good. But the feedback, and when we were looking at how we were meeting the needs of our AHPs who were really vulnerable at that time specifically, and there was lots of sort of noise in and around the system around preceptorship and what are we doing and how are we addressing that. And MPFT, we're quite a unique organisation, I think, potentially in terms of how we are very broad in terms of the geography that we cover, and also we don't have clear departments. So we don't have, all of our AHPs don't sit in physio, dietetics, for example. They're quite scattered over different multidisciplinary teams, which can then mean that our AHPs, single AHPs, can be quite isolated, and they can have nobody stimulating them or working with them directly who is of their own profession. So we were looking at our retention rates, and we were looking at the challenges from our students who are graduating and how we were managing our clinical placements and all of those kind of things, which was making us feel really worried for this workforce around their well-being and how they were getting the support that they needed to succeed and thrive. So I think, and obviously all of that was a big fallout of the pandemic. So the preceptorship programme that we have here is run by our fantastic nursing colleagues, and that's really good. But when we were looking at who is getting onto that course, very few of our AHPs were able to access it, and very few of our AHPs were completing it. And I think the general feedback was it was really, really great, but it wasn't necessarily speaking the same language, wasn't hitting the same things that they needed to from their undergrad course to sort of see them through and nurture and grow them as AHPs. And we did a bit of a deep dive into that, and we had some really clear feedback that we needed to rethink this. And I think as well, the national agenda looking at AHP preceptorship was building. So we were like, oh, we've got a massive workforce crisis, and we're really struggling. How can we address this with the resources we've got, and deliver something that's going to work and be sustainable? So we did some scoping, we looked around, looked at best model practices out there, etc. And we came across Oxley's, and that was great. And obviously saw all the fantastic work that you'd done, the nominations that you'd got, and how you were really leading the way at the time, and still are. And it's so great that we have now been recognised for that. And I think, it was all about, here was an offer that we were going to be able to get put in place, really credible, trusted, and probably would work. And I love the fact that it was virtual and accessible, because actually that would really fit with all of the needs of our workforce. We've got AHPs that work in really tricky environments on their own, and they could never come to a single place to take part in a preceptorship programme. So it just seemed great. And then obviously we had a conversation, and we were like, I think we can do this. Not everybody at the time was convinced. Not everybody at the time in our organisation was convinced. And we went and did that socialisation, didn't we, ourselves? And we went round and did lots of sort of promotion events, tried to reassure people this, would be okay. And here we are. And I think the momentum has just grown and grown and grown, and we can unpick the data, and we've put in the award, and I'm so proud of you and us for what we've achieved. But I look at our data now, and we're almost at 100% of our newly qualified getting onto that programme and completed it, succeeding. And the ones who aren't on it is because they've done preceptorship elsewhere and they don't need it. So that is phenomenal. We've gone from 1 or 2%.
Looking at the data, there was one AHP had completed and only 7 had access.
2. I mean, we've got a lot of newly qualified across the organisation, and to be hitting those numbers and just to feel really reassured that we're offering that quality product and that they are engaging, and we can see the growth and development. It's so fantastic. You've spoken to Ryan, we've got lots of other anecdotal evidence on a variety of different social medias of our staff that have engaged in it, and I couldn't be happier. Around.
We couldn't be happier with PFT.
It just feels really safe. It just feels really secure, sustainable. And I'm delighted that we've done that. And we're doing it.
Absolutely. And we were looking at the data before, and we were looking at our recent sign-offs, and we were looking at how people, what people's future plan is after preceptorship sign-off, and it's also that 100% of those people have got a band 6 or are staying within the organisation.
100%.
100% of the
Yes.
sign off. So it's also not only the access to that programme, but then the support and the investment in that preceptee. And it's really nice to hear those stories of those people that are finishing it and how they can see how, as an organisation, MPFT, you know, joining with us collaboratively with this programme, we've really invested in them.
Yeah, absolutely.
As well.
And they're feeling safe as well and supported.
Yeah. And I think, you know, coming in as well, I think when you look at other models and other programs, and you're in a fantastic space to sort of observe and see a lot of that. And I think that for me, I feel really excited that they're getting stimulation from another organisation, because they get stimulation and support from us and our culture all the time on the day to day. And I think we've certainly seen how that has really benefited an individual as well, and our preceptors, because you're providing a sort of a different viewpoint to challenge their thinking. And I think that's how we develop those really well-rounded practitioners moving forward that can be a bit more agile, flexible, resilient, you know, with all the challenges that we have to face. And that, I love that. I love the fact that it broadens our horizons with our, you know, our AHP workforce. I find that, I think for me, that's a massive tick as well.
As far as we're aware, we are the kind of first of its kind, and maybe the only of its kind still within the kind of nation that are running that preceptorship program, where we do pull in different partner organisations. And obviously you've picked up that networking aspect outside of the organisation, but also that external support from Felicity and myself. Sometimes you just want to speak to somebody who's not in your team, just have a conversation. So obviously that's an element that obviously you're really excited about and you're very happy with. But were there any other elements about collaborating with an external organisation for preceptorship that you could really see the value of, and maybe people hadn't fully bought into that at the beginning, but you're really starting to see now that we are 3 years down the line?
I think, having done a lot of operational work and delivered on a lot of programs, I know how incredibly challenging that is to commit to 12 weeks programs, 12 months, turn up day in, day out, make sure your content is up to date, make sure that it's relevant, deal with sickness. You know, we were during the pandemic, I mean, anything could happen. And that's really difficult to deliver a gold standard quality product when you're working on absolute shoestring of you know, resources that may or may not be out there, and also that skill set as well. So bringing people in to bring up that skill set. And I think at the time, one of the biggest reflections for me was to deliver this and to start to work it through. Either I would have to put in a huge amount, which would pull me from the work that I was doing, or we would have to pull someone who was seeing patients and you know, supporting our service users and our community and our staff to do that. How sustainable was that? And also at the time, you know, it really felt like every AHP on the front line counted. And we needed to do everything we possibly could to keep everyone well at work and seeing people. So that would just seem like a really amazing. I'm like, I'm going to get this fantastic offer of a package and a service. I love the IT. I love the fact, you know, for us to develop that from scratch and have that online portal and have all your competencies going through from day one. You know, we couldn't have produced that. Even if we really wanted to, we couldn't have produced that at pace. And I think the students as well, they're really used to all of the online blackboards and lecture notes and interactive portfolios that they come with, and Pebble Pad and all the different things that we use on clinical placement, and then to come to, you know, into clinical practice where it's still not in that space, I think can be quite a sort of a letdown as well, or challenging. So the fact that it was, you know, it feels like it's really it's a nice transition from being in an education setting, building through those competencies and taking people through that also worked well. So it was around staff resources. We obviously do get so much from working with you, which we couldn't produce for the same overheads and the quality. And obviously now we've got the national framework as well, and it's just so brilliant to see how we're benchmarked against national framework and NPFT in the Midlands. You know, we're an outlier of being outstanding in that space on the matrix. It's really nice, and I'm eternally grateful for the work that we do, and also for our mentors as well. So I really love the fact that, yes, we're investing in our band fives, we're investing in our the progression through, and we've got that support for our internationals as well, which is really tricky in pre-preceptorship. It's also the fact that we're able to provide really good quality support to our mentors of those preceptees, and think that they feel that they're doing a credible bit of training, and that then filters through to our students and our learners in our organisation, and I think they feel invested in as well, and that will really help them on their leadership journey and their clinical journey as well. So it's like we can support everybody in the workforce with, you know, the package, and I feel like the investment's really worth it.
Talking about that support through the workforce as well, what's really nice is, you know, that you picked up, you know, the students and everybody, and you are seeing that investment. But now that we are 3 years down the line as well, we're seeing people who did the program being preceptors. So that investment, there's a legacy, and it's continuing through, and it really does make a difference when somebody who's had that full well-rounded preceptorship program is then leading somebody else through preceptorship. So it's really lovely to see it really filtering up through the workforce.
Absolutely. And it is, you know, I spent a lot of time, and I'm sure other colleagues across the nation in similar roles spent a lot of time looking at the data, looking at, you know, why are we losing people in that age group in the sort of mid to early 20s and up to the 30s? Why are we losing our graduates that come in for the first year, and then we are just hemorrhaging them out of the NHS? And it's so great that our data is sort of backing that trend, because, you know, that was probably now 2 years ago where I was really circling that and looking at it, and it's so nice to see that the intervention's working.
100% this year.
There you go.
Everyone's
better.
In post
Works.
or band 6. That's, I think, half have been upskilled into band 6 because our data also supports preceptees feeling confident to go for those band 6 roles after completing it, because of, we were just talking about Ryan, because our portfolio is so broad, and it gets you to think about things like quality improvement, audits and all of that, which support your band 6.
Absolutely.
So
I think at that level as well, it gives people the confidence to operate at the level that we're expecting them to be operating on, and it just feels much more like that good transition, doesn't it? And to broaden out the work that they're doing, and to challenge, you know, if they are just back-to-back patients, we're not thinking, we're neglecting the 4 pillars of practice, and I think it just gives us that protection that at NPFT we do want you to practice across the 4 pillars of practice. Sometimes you'll do more in one than the other, it's not balanced, but that's so important for your growth, because we do really want you to grow and grow all the way, because then we will get better patient outcomes and serve our communities better.
Definitely.
And even just looking at some of our other data, because we have our kind of report in front of us here, we have 2 years of comprehensive data now, because we have really embedded that preceptorship model. But just going through the main stats, obviously we've spoken about that access to preceptorship. When we first launched, we only had 1 AHP that completed. And I think we've got 31 preceptees that have now completed, and 82 AHPs have had either completed or are currently completing. So we are, like you said, we're really getting to those numbers and all those AHPs, and 91% feeling it's addressing the challenges that they face, which is huge, and 82% even saying that it's helped retain them in post. So they're saying it's literally having a direct impact on their retention, and 100% feeling it's helped with their professional identity and confidence. And if we link it back to the aims of preceptorship, that's what it's all about confidence building. So we can really see it's making
And it's so nice if we reflect back to those sort of conversations and the work. And I do have to do a shout out to Andy.
Oh,
Andy
yes.
Potts.
Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Andy. Which was another story in itself. You know, Andy came across, there was an opportunity around hypertension, you know, trying to make something out of nothing.
Yeah.
There was an opportunity for a high potential scheme. I hope, Andy, you don't mind me saying, but Andy came and worked with me really closely on this, and I have to say I need to put, because you know everyone was doing a lot, you're trying to juggle so many things, and it was so great to have Andy's dedicated resource to really help us work through some of that data and do some of that scoping to see what was the best options and pull together the options appraisals. So thank you, Andy. It was so worth it, and I was so eternally grateful for the work that you did for us, and will always be, because it really has made a difference. And it's so great.
Yeah. And even looking at some of these are some quotes from Precepte's sign-off they're saying it's had an increase in my confidence, aided my develop, strengthened my evidence-based practice, and then leading to better care for my patients. And that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And coming back to what you were saying, when we were looking at the data and we were going through, I often hear, we were often hearing out there with our AHPs who are working in isolation and in mental health care trusts as well. It's quite often that AHPs can start to sort of absorb quite generic roles. And it's not unknown, is it, that people sort of really feel that they lose that sense of identity, and some even come off the register. Absolutely, because they just feel that they're not utilising their profession skills anymore, so they don't need to maintain registration in that space because they're exercising them in other valid fields and to treat their patients. So, but that was a massive concern for us because we're constantly losing that skill set and that input to the patients. So the fact that they're actively saying that they feel like they're an occupational therapist or a podiatrist and they're working through is brilliant to me. And then as the broader AHP family, it's great. That's what we want.
And we see those comments in Oxley. So in our organisation, as you say, you know, very similar. There's some, we've got mental health, physical health, we've got all directions, but a lot of those mental health roles, they are feeling like they're kind of losing some of their professional identity. So that networking, we've got a lovely quote here as well, you know, access to the external network was valuable in connecting with like-minded people in the same position as yourself in different trusts. And, you know, being able to share that experience, it can be supporting and reassuring. And I think that's, you know, going back to what we were saying earlier about being able to network outside. The NHS is such a small world.
Yeah.
You never know when your paths are going to cross again. But when you've got that feeling of imposter syndrome or you are on your own, it can be so loud that you just need to be able to hear that somebody else is having those feelings as well. And you're spread over a huge geographical area in MPFT as well, so they may not see somebody else, and just being able to dial into that meeting, somebody who's maybe not within their organisation but is also going, do you know what, that's exactly how I feel. We see such huge increasing confidence from people when they hear that other people have got imposter syndrome, they're not alone. And actually, part of Perception, we're going to teach you some skills to kind of combat that, or build up some skills that, you know, you can really overcome that with time. We're not going to be able to eradicate that imposter syndrome, but with networking with others and developing those skills early, when that arises again in your future career, you know, hopefully you've got the tools to really help yourself or help others in your team, because you may recognise that they're having that feeling. So we really love that we can network with people outside of the organisation, and we think there's huge value in that, and it's really nice to see that in the outcomes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And also another one here just saying it's broadened my awareness of workplace equality and diversity issues. It's given me more knowledge and a support network, which has led to improved confidence in my own patient care. And then a podiatrist here saying that together with their trust practical competencies, the AHP Perception Programme has enhanced their skills and ways of working, embedding in my practice and giving me confidence to take the next step. That's what it's all about.
So I know that obviously we've spoken about some of the real great benefits and you've really covered that well, but what challenges have we faced, do you think? What are the big challenges? Which is, what other people want to hear. It's great to look at the benefits, but actually what have been the things we've maybe struggled with?
It's so funny, isn't it? Because you look back and you just think, were they really? It's like you sort of can look back along that beautiful sort of horizon, because now we can see it. It's all in front of us.
So clear now.
Yeah, it's so clear. And just like everybody, I think part of the human nature is you sort of forget some of those things. But in terms of the challenges, I think the biggest one was getting people to believe that doing something outside of your organisation and you not delivering it yourself is okay, and also it could be better, or it could be at least the equivalent and might actually be safer. So sort of balancing up the risks versus the consequences of taking that plunge. I think that was quite difficult. I think convincing, there's a lot of concern around, that money's not being invested internally into a post to support somebody to have that role. I mean, it's a great role. You guys do a great job. So I suppose there was something around that could be an issue, because actually we could be using that to support a post and do work in that space. And also trying to get, as we operate in MPFT, we operate across a very, very diverse organisational infrastructure. We've got different care groups and over a very large geography. So trying to get that message out there and socialise it and get people to believe it and take that first step of getting people on as well was quite challenging, I think. Trying to get people to trust the product. Because it's really difficult to trust a product if you've not done the product. But actually we did do that, and we did get that through, and it was a slow start, I think, as well. I think, if you are thinking about doing this with your organisation and partnering with Oxley's, it can be a slow start. And I think there's lots of reasons why there's a slow start. You don't always have newly qualified coming into post that need a preceptorship program, so that's a barrier. It can take people time to get trained up and inducted and on the program. And so we started, I think officially we started in November, and then we sort of went through the probably bad time, winter pressures during COVID, on reflection, but we went through and we had that, didn't we? So it was like a bit of a trickle, and then you get to the end of the financial year and people are like, well, where are your outcomes? And where are your figures? And you've only got 4 people who have started the program, and that can be quite challenging. I told you it wasn't going to work, and those sorts of things. But actually, trying to just be realistic. It's a 12-month program. We're not going to have the outcomes. We've only had this many people that could be released and start the program. So I think just being calm and believing that things take time to embed, and we need to stick with this, because if we swap and change, and I think there was lots of kind of conversations, because we initially signed up for the 12 months, and that first 12 months, and I think you could look at it and you might go, is it worth it? Because, and then we sort of had that plan, didn't we, for a wind, that we might need to do a wind down. But actually sticking with it was so important, because in year 2 we really started to see the momentum grow, and then year 3 it's now absolutely, I would say, at that sweet spot where our operational leads know we've got the product, our clinical leads know we've got the product, our professional leads absolutely are backing it, and it's out there on our website, and our students know. So when they're on clinical placement, they know we've got the product, and they're seeing it, and the preceptorship program, and our staff who are like wanting to transition into 6 or to other roles, they want to be part of that and experience that. So I think you've just got to be patient and
trust the process.
And it will build the momentum, I think. But I think that is so important. Then swapping and changing, because we did have options to go into different spaces or trial different things, and obviously we are partnered with our UH&M colleagues as well, and I think that is so powerful for us, because we do have people who move between the programme, but as a system that works really well. And I love the fact that we work with UH&M on that really closely, and we know that our staff that will move and fluctuate between us, and our patients move and fluctuate across those pathways, they have the same quality in that space, and that feels really good and safe and effective as well for us. And
that's a really nice reflection on the challenge, because we've had that with every organisation where it does take that time.
When we do the 6-month review, which we've now scrapped because it's not enough time to look at, you know, what the impact that it's making. And I remember when we did our 6-month review and we're like, the data doesn't seem to be adding up.
And it wasn't matching the voices we were hearing from the preceptees.
And when we did UH&M as well, we're like,
and that's why we stopped the 6-month review, because
it's just not.
It's not. And actually at the 12-month, as you say, people are only just completing and seeing the value. What was really beneficial, I think, with that, that 2 years of being implemented, just as we were accessing, as you call it, like that sweet spot, was the national framework, and the HCPC came out. So it also added that extra, like, look, this has got real value. You just need to give it that time.
Yeah,
and change management is so difficult, isn't it? You want to give it that time, but it's finding that right amount of time. And I think you're right. I think really it's after 18 months that you actually really start to see that.
Yeah.
But of course we do an annual report, so where it was like, just wait a few months. But it was a big challenge. I remember at the time, because we did look at that data and we thought, it's not matching the voices that we're hearing. But that's because we just needed to give it a bit more time.
And I think it's so important. But one of the key moments I remember as well, which was really critical, I think, to gaining sort of more organisational momentum in this space, was when I had operational colleagues coming forward and telling me that, do we have a preceptorship programme? Because at interview, the AHPs they were interviewing were asking for a preceptorship programme. And that was just absolutely magic, because at that point I think it really started to help, because they network in a different arena, and then being really clear on trying to make it really present on our adverts as well. And it was just so great to hear that our AHPs who are coming through university are asking for it, and so they should, because not all organisations offer a comprehensive programme, and it's so great to be putting out the marketing material and, come work for us, we will support you, and we have got this programme, and you will be invested in and looked after, and that's really nice, and hopefully that helps MPFT be a good place for people to come and work and stay with us.
And externally working with your trust, we can really see how both your preceptees and preceptors are so happy within the organisation, and you really do nurture and support your staff, and just so lovely to work with. Your preceptors so engaged, and they really appreciate, like you said, that external support, and just somebody just to like, can I just check, am I doing this okay? And it's like a good formal process for them. And we have
that protected time. Is so important, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I think that's so good.
That permission to really just step away from that role, and
that's what Brian said this morning.
Be in that preceptee or preceptor headspace, and actually share those conversations in that protected environment is so important. Because as Ryan was saying this morning, people start in their careers and they're like, I simply must just be seeing patients all of the time. And it's that permission to go, no, you can reflect on this and pause, gain some other skills that are linked to your clinical practice. But as you said, also explore those 4 pillars of practice, because they're hugely important.
Absolutely. Otherwise, we will not get that progression for our next generation. And we need that, because it's such a fast-paced world around the evidence base, and we need our practitioners to know how to deal with that and to keep those skills present. So great.
And just some like Preceptee stories that we have, and we've covered like a real range of transitions, and that's we love the fact that now the national framework does support that. It's not just newly qualified. So we've got someone that's just completed Beyond Preceptorship, and there's a quote here that, you know, being part of Beyond Preceptorship was invaluable experience that truly shaped my transition from 5 to 6. The programme's guidance, along with your motivation, was inspiring and gave me confidence to pursue this higher band. I'm especially grateful for the mock interview that we gave. It really helped me tremendously in feeling prepared and composed. And this was part of an email that they sent us just to say thank you, because they were successful in interview, and they had previous interviews where they weren't successful. And we just really gave them that confidence boost. And obviously they did Beyond, which really supported them. International recruits, we've had some, you know, huge success with that. We've had a physio who neurodivergent, was the only band 5 and the first band 5 in the team as well, and felt quite isolated, and this was a really good process for them, because it really tackled that isolation and not feeling so alone within the team, because they were the only band 5 that they'd ever had. So actually it's so different supporting someone that's a band 6 or experienced 5 in comparison to someone who's newly qualified. So this really does support that, you know, preceptor role as well with that. We had someone that was an experienced band 5 but was actually struggling with motivation, like had no interest in pursuing higher bands, but it was so lovely doing their sign off, because they were just like reflecting on how this has really reignited their passion for their role, and they'd taken on students, and actually in the future they're like, oh, actually I do want to go and do a band 6. Like, great. So it's not just those that are newly qualified, it can be those that are kind of stuck in a bit of a rut, and just not feeling motivated. Be finding this is like reigniting that AHP or profession passion. And then we've also got a return from maternity leave, which was, again, they reflected on how it was really nice to come back to it, because they'd gone on maternity leave midway, and then they're like, it was like the safe space like to come back to, because you do get, they reflect, you do get those thoughts of like, oh, I'm coming back to job and I don't know what I'm doing,
especially after a maternity leave. Or any period when you've had to step out of the workplace. And then it was great to then support them after that and get them completed, and they just said it was nice to actually get back into that structure and that support. So obviously we've had lots of different stories, but loads of different transitions there.
With so many, just some really key ones to pick out. I think, as you say, with so many transitions, but my favourite one is that band 5 that was, you know, had been a band 5 for a while, and we really reignited that passion. And I think a lot of that was around forming their professional identity again, because they just felt a bit lost. So that's, preceptorship doesn't just benefit those new starters. There's so many people it can benefit. So Wendy, obviously we've really reflected on what, you know, the investment from MPFT and how we love partnering with you, and of course the CAFO Awards to really recognise that. But if somebody from an organisation that was considering joining, you know, Oxley, so, you know, and this community that we've got, if they were considering it, what would you say to them?
I mean, I suppose in a nutshell, I say, why wouldn't you? But rather than, you know, it's a great option. I mean, obviously we've got our data set. I think it does depend on where you're at as an organisation, and what type of organisation you are, and what your infrastructure looks like. But that it's just such a great product, and it's just so. It really does work. I mean, obviously we've chatted it through. We've got endless data. We've won a national award for it. And so from our point of view, it's been absolutely great. It's been great for our system. It's been great for our AHPs. And there's lots of reasons why we wouldn't, you know, we're really delighted in that space. So I think it's really hard to imagine not having something like that, not having partnering with you, and I think that's the thing, is once you do go through that sort of that tricky period of thinking about uptake, changing a model, those kind of things, and you get to that sweet spot, it's really difficult to take it away. I think to take that away from the infrastructure, and then that's when you get full-blown sort of sustainability, don't you? But I think it depends on your infrastructure, and the identity. It's so important because if you AHPs are different. We are different to our nursing colleagues and our medics, and there is definitely something about coming together as an MDT. But quite often, not only are you an AHP, but you are a podiatrist or a radiographer or a speech and language therapist. Your journey to that point is so different. And when you work on your own in those spaces with nobody else from your profession, it can be really, really difficult. And then when you're journeying through preceptorship with a multidisciplinary space, we are just quite different. And I think the sense of identity and belonging and just feeling like there's somebody who gets you is really important on lots of levels. But even from a professional point of view, it's quite core into our identity, I think. And it's really nice that we have that sort of protected space to be all AHP and celebrate being AHP and have our funny AHP ethos and culture that we generate, which, rightly or wrongly, you can't deny it, that is a thing. And I certainly feel that in my space, and it's really valuable. And I just think you reflect back on that, those individuals and the case studies, and would that person have reached out to ask for support for an interview internally, and the fact that you are external. And I know we have lots of we're part of the West Midlands Coaching Network, and we do loads of really great stuff, but actually I suppose it probably is because you're not part of us. You're a bit it's an extra lifeline. It's that extra sort of support, and I think that is just so invaluable, having that sort of you're dead close and you're part of the team, but you're also in a slightly different world. And I think that also enables people to sort of step out as well and do that proper reflection and take that time, which is so needed, and get all the rest, get that sort of mental rest and brain space. Whereas if it's MPFT, it's almost like there's still all the emails, there's patients and all the
you
things.
Don't have that escape. It makes me
different, I think.
Exactly. And it makes me think of what Beverly Harden said. We are all great within our own right. But actually, why would you want to reinvent the wheel if you're looking at something and it could work for your organisation? Implementing it is not reinventing the wheel, but you've got that external support, so you do have that separate space that feels safe.
And why would you reinvent the wheel? It's really great. And I feel absolutely thrilled that we're working and supporting a sustainable product that I know is always growing and onboarding, and we have a fantastic relationship and work really, really well and deal with the problems as they come up, and look at it's not that you're not engaged as an organisation in the process. I feel thoroughly engaged. So I think it feels really nice to be, like you say, like looking over the horizon and going, we'll get to the top of the mountain, and long may it continue. And I really look forward to future developments. I know you're always open to ideas, and we can flex things, and I'm so excited for that growth of our workforce and seeing how they progress through their career and
the legacy.
It's nice. Who knows where we're going to be, but right now, just at this moment, it feels great.
It's really exciting.
And we've got the award.
And we've got the award.
So we're just going to swim on that for a while.
And really milking it. I guess that leads us on to the last question then. So what do you see in the future for us as a partnership?
I just hope it carries on. I think it's just sustainability, really, keeping it going. We've got to obviously make sure that we can do that, and there's always pressures, and I think that's where it comes back to how you're managing your risks, how you're managing the finances side of things, and how being really clear on your outcomes and making sure that it's paying. But obviously, if we're retaining a staff member through that program and we're not getting that vacancy and we're getting that continual growth, we're saving on locum costs and all the stress and anxiety that is created in those teams. So you look at the journey that we've come on and what our data is telling us. That sort of answers your business case, really. It's always going to be a challenge. Things are always challenging in the NHS. But right now, from our point of view, we just want to be part of the ongoing growth of it, and really look forward to supporting other partners potentially in our system to come and join us, because that's really helpful. I think it really helps to build our AHP community, and knowing that we're all kind of moving on the same foundation, and we've got the national framework, and that is really good. But it does just really help. I think it helps with movement and mobilisation and development and all of those kind of things. So we're staying put for now.
Continue.
Very thoroughly staying put. Really looking forward to keeping ongoing evaluations, seeing how it grows and develops, wanting to make sure that obviously you're well and staying well as well, because that's all part of the sustainability, isn't it? And it's great. It feels really good.
And we've got next year we're doing our joint UHM and MPFT which
celebration.
So we're gonna get everyone together and networking between community and acute, and celebrate all the amazing preceptees and preceptors,
and also celebrate those stories, as you say, where we've had people move from HM and MPFT and vice versa.
There's no, we don't get across with each other.
Okay. Because community is not for everyone, and it's not for everyone. But actually, because you're on the same preceptorship, that person's not starting again. It's almost like a little passport across.
And it works really. I mean, we work really, really closely, and we know our workforce move between each other, and that's good. We know that that's also good for us, because actually if you're working in community land, it is so helpful if you know what it's like in acute land, because you can understand the pathways, what the experiences are those patients have had, and vice versa. In fact, we try and actively sort of encourage it. So it's great, and I think long may all these partnerships continue, and sustainability, really. I think that's the key, and just keep moving forward.
Maybe in future national conference, get all the organisations together.
Absolutely. And I think it is good, isn't it? Because you get that good oversight, but it is really good to connect people. Because I think I'm very fortunate in my remit that I can connect across England and meet with lots of other people, and lots of different networks, but you gain so much from that, and we learn so much quicker when we you know who to phone, you know who to speak to a friend, and you can stimulate each other. I think that's really good, and that's what you offer. That in a nutshell. We couldn't do that on our own. No. We couldn't offer that. So that's great.
Wow, that's all we have, really.
Unless there's any... We've got into this habit now where we do say the same things. Unless there's anything else you would like to add or ask us, Wendy. We always invite people to ask us a question now.
Oh, wow. Big question. I suppose. Where do you see it going? Back at you.
I guess similar answer to you. Like, just long may it continue and grow. And we can't wait to see that legacy part where those preceptees become preceptors, and they go up the bandings to the sevens and the the leads, and actually them still reflecting back on their preceptorship experience. I think
definitely
would be really lovely to see.
And I think something that I potentially see is why stop at beyond preceptorship. Actually look at those enhanced career conversations in future, and I think moving into the career conversation space is something that we are both actively pursuing. And I'd really like to see, actually, great, we're supporting people from a 5 to a 6, but actually what about that 6 to a 7? We could look at that space and have more of those career conversations going forward. So I think that's a space that I'd be
questions.
Happy to look at.
Have you got a 6 to 7?
We get those questions as well. And there's different programs and packages out there, isn't it? there's definitely something to look at around there, because I think, especially if you didn't have preceptorship and you didn't have grand preceptorship, there's a whole cohort of staff that might be in that similar situation of feeling quite stuck.
Yes.
And then sometimes, you know, going and doing a master's or going doing, you know, an apprenticeship, a postgraduate apprenticeship might not be the right thing. And we offer a great, our organisational development team and our training teams in NPFT are really good. And we do have great packages, but I think sometimes there's also still something about being stimulated, and our research team is amazing. And there's so much stuff that's going on. But sometimes there is something around that grounding back into these are your 4 pillars of practice, and you are in AHP, and let's really think about that and think about your identity and rekindle some of that magic in your role. So let's watch this space.
Yeah.
I'm always up for an idea, me.
So,
Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you. It's lovely to meet you. Lovely to see you.
Actually,
to see you.
Yes,
I know.
This is the first time we have met face to face. We have
only
achieved
taken
all
3 years.
all this through the virtual world, and I think,
Absolutely.
isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
I was reflecting on that this morning when I was coming in. I was just like, that is great. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Just think of all that carbon we have saved.
Yes, absolutely. Green
That's
AHPs.
what
Absolutely.
Suzanne really recognised as well.
It's massive.
That virtual piece.
And those frazzled clinicians, you know, those frazzled people just not feeling terrible that they're late because they've not been able to pay for parking. They've got caught in traffic. It's really accessible.
Even within our trust, which geographically isn't as big as MPFT, but when we used to do it face to face, people didn't engage because they're like, I can't get there, like I don't drive.
It's a massive problem.
And I think
or it would take them an hour to get there, and then an hour back, so you're losing a huge chunk of time and travel.
Absolutely.
It really worked with us. So
it's that is massive in terms of saving NHS resources. Huge.
Absolutely.
All for that.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you for joining us.